Welcome and good evening, everyone. Hope all of you are staying safe in these rather unfortunate and uncertain times. But we at Daksha Fellowship are very happy to welcome you into this conversation, continuing part of what we began last year with the Daksha Dialogues. As some of you are aware, the Daksha Fellowship has at its mission addressing certain well stated legal gaps in legal education in the country. In particular, we look at technology law and policy, the rise of the regulatory state, and advanced dispute resolution strategies as three core areas where there is need to do more legal education and certainly more conversations such as the one that we are going to have today. Of course, the fellowship is a residential program located in Chennai. In the inaugural year, which we began in 2020, the first term happened online and the second one happened in residence. We are hoping to at least do a part of our third final term in residence as well. Uh, so we have about 46 bright students from all across the country who are qualified lawyers who are part of the fellowship. As a continuing engagement with technology law and policy, today we are taking up an area of technological innovation and advancement which has not received the kind of attention that it should ideally receive, and which is quantum technologies. And we have two very distinguished experts who are here to steer this conversation. And I'm sure by the end of this conversation, all of us here will be much better informed about this technology, which is very evidently quite complex. So, without further delay, let me just quickly introduce our speakers for the day. Let me begin with Animesh Aryan. Animesh is an innovator with close to a decade of research experience in the field of quantum physics, focusing in particular on quantum cryptography and photonics. He is a former fellow of the Raman Research Institute in Bangalore. He started his research at the International School of Photonics and thereon proceeded to the Nanyang Tech University at Singapore, NTU. His work on portable quantum cryptographic devices and related quantum technologies has been acknowledged both by academia and industry. In 2018, Animesh decided to take the entrepreneurship route and he founded Tackbit Labs, a Bangalore based startup which provides cybersecurity solutions using quantum technology. His company provides security solutions for defense applications, banking and finance, telecommunications, and data centers. We have with us today Tushar Gandhi, who will have this conversation with animation, bring out the finer nuances of quantum computing. Tushar has been working in the public policy domain for many years now and has spearheaded several outreach and communications campaigns for some of the world's leading organizations and brands and across multiple sectors. He actively engages with various stakeholders such as the government, industry associations, bilateral and multilateral organizations, think tanks, academia, industry players, parliamentarians, and media. He's authored several white papers and has been invited as an industry member on several government committees. Currently, Tushar is the founder and CEO of Gateway Consulting, a public affairs firm which is headquartered in Gurugram. Prior to this, he worked at some of India's leading public affairs and communications firms. He's a postgraduate in advanced strategy management from IIM Calcutta and has earned certifications in public policy, a diploma in mass media and journalism, and an MBA in marketing. He's an avid reader and has equipped himself with knowledge of business law. So he is someone who can connect the world of law and technology and public policy. So over to you, Tushar, to get this conversation started.
Hi, thank you so much, Anand, for the introductions. And I thank everyone for taking the time out and joining this session as well. So, in this session, one thing that we were just discussing is that Coming from a non-science background, it is so difficult for any person like me, even like any normal person, to understand what exactly is quantum physics and try to make some meaning out of that. Even though we cannot make too much of meaning of what we know about quantum or whatever information that is there in the public domain, yet quantum technology is expected to be the future of information technology going forward. Maybe we can probably see that in the next decade or two, that it's going to be really, really big, probably as big as what internet was about 20 years, like what internet was about 20 years back and what it's today. So that's something that we probably could see quantum heading in that direction. And this is going to be along with other frontier technologies such as blockchain and artificial intelligence. So it's a it's expected to be quite big, and the future for information technology. So in this session, what we will try and understand from Animesh is some of the concepts of quantum physics very briefly, and Animesh has taken a lot of pains to simplify that for all of us. And he has done so much of research in this area, and also kind of see how quantum physics and quantum technology can be applied in real time in various sectors, especially cybersecurity. And especially in cybersecurity, what are the current set of challenges, and in future what's going to happen, and how quantum can probably solve those challenges. So he has a few slides, and it'll be interesting to know how this is going to be applicable. So largely this conversation will be for about say 20 to 30 minutes tops, and then we'll open it for Q&A session. So Animesh, thank you so much for taking the time out
Yes.
for this session. And just to start with, could you tell all of us, like what exactly is quantum physics? Because a lot of audience are from the law and policy background. What exactly is quantum physics, and how do they apply to quantum? How do these laws and concepts apply to quantum technology?
Yes, yes. First, thank you, Anant, for the kind introduction, and same to Tushar. Um, and thank you for organizing this event, because many a times the need gaps are such that one person talking about only a technology, while in a system of events, other party also needs to know at least a brief about it, for effective adaptation. So what I feel is that this should be a very what I would say engaging discussion for us. And what I can only in this discussion promise is that the people who are joining this, they will at least have a feel of the technology. How does it impact our lives, and how it's also going to play a huge role in terms of building our nation. And when you look at geopolitics or geoeconomics, how it's going to play a role in terms of defining us. So that's where I feel that that such a discussion is important, so that we can create a ecosystem, especially for this particular of technology. So yeah, so just that would be my remark on this discussion. Coming to Tushar's question, I would say one very simple thing, which is like classical computers or the computers that we have, they use classical laws. You have laws of mechanics, you have thermodynamics, electronics, a lot of things put together, and therefore you have a classical computer. In the same way, when we talk about quantum technology, is something where you use quantum physics. And many of these laws which are in quantum physics are quite counterintuitive. As in, I mean, let's say we talk about laws, something like superposition or entanglement or uncertainty. Now, to give you a example, in physics, when we throw a ball, we know everything about it. So you throw with a certain speed, you throw it at a certain point and time, and then you can actually use Newton laws, and you can calculate where the ball is going to be at a particular time or a particular space. That's, we know everything about it. That is how the mechanics works in real life, is that there are no uncertainties. If there are uncertainties, it is only because of because of the instruments that we are using. So eventually, when you see a lot of you know players, actually, someone putting a ball, and we know everything, whether the ball will hit, where does it go. So we can do every such mapping instantaneously, because it is all based on deterministic laws. So you know something, and therefore you know something in future. Whereas in quantum, that is not true. In quantum, uncertainty is inherent. It means that it doesn't depend on the device. So you can't tell that if there is electron or there is a photon, you can't tell it with 100% probability that it's going to be in one way or the other. That is how quantum physics, one of those uncertainty works. The second thing is that in physics, everything is in boxes, as in it's a wave or it's a particle. You can say that there's a football, that's a particle, and then you have lights emitting as waves, so you have wave theory. Whereas in quantum, that box is not there. You actually cannot say that something as is only a wave or a particle, which means that it is a dual nature which comes into picture. That is a very important aspect, that imagine that you keep a football in one room. You are going to expect it that when the next time you see, it's going to be in that particular room itself. Whereas if you're supposed to have an electron, you can't say if it has gone to the other room or not, and it could be existing at multiple places at the same time. So this is what superposition is, that it could exist at multiple points, and it is a superposition of basically many different states. So that is very counterintuitive. Now, what exactly this technology does is that, I mean, without delving into the more technical part of it, this kind of a behavior or phenomena can be used to build certain technologies, and which could be important for many sectors, for computation, for cryptography, for memory. So when we say quantum technology, people are mostly aware of something called as quantum computing or computation. But under the umbrella of quantum technologies, you have many such applications, which is you will have quantum cryptography, you have quantum computation, you have quantum memory, so there are quantum imaging. So these are these are all technologies built on some or the other phenomena of quantum physics, and we use it to build certain technologies. So that is what we majorly understand about quantum technologies. And as Tushar rightly pointed out, that we are sitting at the cusp. This is where the decade is going to change. We'll see a lot of I mean, we are already seeing a lot of advancements worldwide in quantum technology, and it's actually I would say uh, impact every sector, from from telecommunications to computation, from biological applications, you name it. It could also be used for agriculture. So there are some protein molecule foldings which are very difficult to simulate on a classical computer, but these will be done using a quantum algorithm and a quantum computer effectively. So there are a lot of things which are coming up. So yeah, this is what I would say briefly about quantum technologies. I hope people are okay with this.
Yeah,
Yes.
yeah. So Animesh, it is complex to understand. Even if you're listening to it for the 10th time, it's still complex for me to understand that as well.
Yes.
But nevertheless, could you explain to us that how this applications of quantum technologies is can be used in cybersecurity? What
Hmm.
we really like to understand is what are the current set of challenges
Hmm.
in cybersecurity. I think everybody can understand that because that's what we have been reading, and that's what we know, that these are the set of challenges in cybersecurity. And then to solve those challenges, how does quantum come in?
Yes.
So probably you can share the slides
Yes. Yes.
with
Yes.
the viewers.
Yes. Yeah. So Tushar, I think what I would start with, your first part of the question was about, quantum cryptography. I mean, how it impacts cybersecurity. But before that, let me, have the audience at least understanding of how actually a regular encryption works, what are the issues, and how quantum is helping solve that particular problem.
Sure.
So I'll just share my screen. One second. I believe it is visible to all of you. Is it visible to all of you? Yes. Okay.
Yes.
Okay. So to start with, let's understand that how does an encryption work, and this is some sort of scenario where you have an intelligence agency and you have some secret agent. Now what they want to do is they want to share some piece of information, some secret information. This could be the next location, and they want to send it to the particular agent in the most confidential way possible. So what they do is that they will have a document, they will lock it with a particular key, passcode, or a password, and this will be sent to that particular agent. And then over any exchange channel, this could be a channel over a call or over email, the passcode is revealed, and the moment the code is revealed, the agent can have the information. And this backbone actually remains the same for even digital encryption which happens. So the backbone remains same. So you need basically a key, you need a suitcase, and then you need an exchange channel. Okay, so these are the good features, features of a good encryption. What it means is that you must have a key which is random, which means that you should not be able to guess it. The second part is the channel, which means that the channel on which you are exchanging your data over the, let's say, over phone, when you're talking, no one should be able to tap it. And the third part is, which is also very crucial, is the algorithm or the suitcase must be robust, which means that without having access to the key, no one can access the data inside the suitcase. Okay, so that is how algorithm works. Now when you see the features of this encryption, uh, the problem is also threefold. And the problem also, and if you look at all the data attacks, data leaks which happen, you can pinpoint that all of this is happening because of any one of these, or multiple issues with respect to the features which I'm describing right here. Okay, now let's look at the first problem, when you talk about randomness. So let's try to see that you have three suitcases. And if I take the students who have also come for this particular dialogue, I think this is my question to all of them as well, is that if we have to put a passcode to each suitcase, what would be someone's guess? And I believe that most of the people would be choosing something which they can remember. This could be year of birth, digits of a mobile number, or something which they can easily recollect, right? And that is how typically we do encryption from our end, that how do we lock our data. But this problem is actually a very difficult problem for a computer. So what a computer does is that computer will randomly choose some numbers. So it would choose a few numbers like 6752, 5895, 7510. Now at the first guess, it doesn't seem that any of these numbers are related to each other, right? And this is what a computer does. It does randomly throw some numbers. Okay, now when you look closely, what you see is that these numbers are actually related to each other. If you square the first number and take the middle four, this is the second suitcase's number. Okay, and if you square the second one and take the middle four, that's actually the third suitcase's number. Now what it reveals is that it doesn't matter how strong your suitcase is. If I have been able to guess your keys, then basically your data is open. It doesn't matter how strong your suitcase was. Okay, so this is the first kind of a problem where the keys which are being used for encryption are becoming more deterministic, because they are based on some algorithm or something which is deterministic in principle. And therefore if you have enough sample size, reverse engineering is always possible. And this has been exposed in multiple hacks which happen across the world, when you use a deterministic random number generator. So this is the first kind of a problem. The second kind of a problem which I talked about, which I'm talking about, is the exchange channel. So when you want to communicate some data, it is in a strings of bits, right? That's how you define classically a bit, which is which can only hold 0 or 1, right? Which can be only one in one of these states. And these strings of these bits are actually how a digital communication happens. Now what happens is that when in a channel, everything that you talk about becomes more and more basically if someone tries to tap in the data, and recreate those data, you cannot actually distinguish. So you cannot distinguish between two high pulses. So what we know is that exchange channel is not secure. And this is something which people are also aware when they hear about, telephone being tapped, or, some emails being leaked, and people know that the channel is not secure, right? Now, the third part is a little complex, which is the algorithm is at the verge of breakdown. When I talk about here, without delving into the details, what I would say is that there is a public key encryption system, which is based on the computational hardness, which means that, how hard it is for a computer to crack to crack the suitcase. Okay. The understanding is that it would take about more than 60 million years for a computer to solve it. So therefore, people, at least feel that this is a completely secure technology. But what happens is a quantum computer is capable of solving this in minutes and seconds. The only thing is that, as of now, the quantum computer, is not able to do it, because it's it's actually getting built. So we have more and more qubits being added up. Just to give, brief people about it, the way in a classical computer has a classical bit, which is 0 or 1. In a quantum computer, there is something called as qubit or a quantum bit, which is 0 and 1 at the same time. Now, this is a very counterintuitive thing, right? How it can happen. This ponderings we can talk about maybe when we talk in some Q&As. But what it means is that instead of having 2 bits, you can use 1 bit, 1 quantum bit. Okay. Therefore, you can save memory. You can achieve better, speed. And what it means is that, a faster computation. So what quantum computers can do is that it can actually break any encryption system which is built today. Okay. That's why most of these MNCs, companies are going after building a quantum computer, because it can solve a hell lot of our problems, from finance to cryptography to simulations, anything you name it. Quantum computers will do an amazing job at it, and that's why people are building quantum computers. So what we know is that the current infrastructure is at the verge of breakdown. Therefore, it needs to be addressed. And just to add into all these 3 problems, we all know that hackers have much more better stuff than what typically any particular corporate or any particular organization has, right? So this is the 3 kind of a threefold problem that we have. And the need gap is also a very realistic. Just to tell you that this is the person, Edward Snowden. I think people will be aware of him. That something as early as 2013, he revealed some documents where government was using altered chips, so that they can get into data of any person actually in their country. And this was actually by design made faulty. Okay. And which means that a state turned into a surveillance state, a nation state turning into a surveillance state, and getting to know everything about what their people are thinking, doing. So this is, I think, is no more a problem, a theoretical problem. This is happening worldwide, and therefore we have to handle our data very carefully. To just sum up the state of current cybersecurity, what we know is that the current algorithms are actually are based on certain assumptions, and those assumptions are valid only for classical computers. Quantum computers can break those encryptions. And it was shown as early as 1994 that a quantum computer of a large scale will be able to actually break the current RSA. So therefore, what we see is that there is a clear need gap in cybersecurity, and the way we handle our data, I think we have to agree whether it is also post-COVID. More things will become more and more digital, right? And that's bound to happen. And as you see, data will be very critical. Therefore, we must have certain technologies in place, which actually allows us to safeguard our data. And it could be data of individuals, data of a country, and how they handle everything without risking their country's economy, their country's lives, or personal details. Everything that we know has to be safeguarded with new and innovative technologies, and that's where quantum comes to our rescue. So what we see is that for some data, we will always think that, quantum computers are not there. So why do you have to actually, think about it now? Well, for some time, let's assume that argument. But what we see is that harvesting attack is one such attack which always happens, which means that people collect the information, even though it is encrypted, and decrypt it at a later point of time when the technology has matured. Okay, so what we see is that for some data, it is already late, but we must adapt this new technology so that we can actually safeguard our data. So that's why we feel that there's time to worry, and we must be aware how we can build the systems, how we can actually implement and do some effective adaptation of this technology. Now, what Tackbit does, and I'll not go into more details of it, but what Tackbit does is that Tackbit uses certain aspect of quantum technologies, and we actually fuse this with the existing infrastructure. So we create keys or numbers which cannot be predicted. What it means is that even a quantum computer cannot predict it. Okay, and these are based on random behavior of photons. Just to give you a feel of it, if you pass 100 photons through a beam splitter, you will have 50 photons on one end and 50 on the other end. But if you pass only one photon at a time, there is no actually algorithm to predict which side it will go, which means that it is a truly random process. And what we do is that we use this as a source of tapping the randomness from the nature and using it for creating random bits. So therefore, these are the perfect way of creating random keys, and all of these are quantum resilient, which means that it will have no effect because of quantum computers. So when we talk about quantum communication, what we do is that we use these photons for encryption, and anybody who's trying to tamper actually these photons will end up revealing themselves, which means that you can know that this channel has been compromised. The channel, whatever channel on which you're trying to communicate your data, has been compromised, and therefore you know that it is not safe to use this channel for your communication. So quantum comes in a big way, and as we talk, uh, you know Tokyo has cities built on quantum networks. So something like even a basic conferencing, I could show you some pictures, is that you can see is built on uh, quantum layer. Okay, and when we talk about China has built about 2000 kilometer of quantum network. So even their banking and financial transactions are happening on a quantum network. So everywhere what we see is that this will become very critical, because data is the new oil today, right? Anybody who has the access to data, they are able to mine any information from it, right? So it is very important that we are able to use this technology to protect our data. Yes.
Thanks
Yes.
for
Over
that.
to you, Tisha.
Yeah, thanks for that, Animesh. So when we talk about when you have explained so much about quantum solving so many problems,
Hmm.
why what is the delay in quickly deploying this? Could you touch upon some of the things that what's your recommendation as to, or probably what the government can do for better adoption and commercialization of quantum technology? And and what is it that are there any kind of policies that may be required, any kind of incentives that may be required? And also, what you can do is you can touch upon what are the challenges that you have faced as a startup,
Hmm.
for quick deployment or commercialization of your technology as well.
Sure. Yeah, I think, when we talk about some challenges in terms of adaptation, I would differentiate this into two particular segments. One is the technical aspect, which is like, there are some limitations in terms of the technology. Like as of now, you can reach certain kilometers, certain distance, let's say about hundreds of kilometers. So there are some technical challenges to it, which are being addressed every day through, constant research. The other problem, and I would say this is a bigger problem, which is you know when you do not have things in place, or laws to to understand the importance of some certain technologies. Like if you see, uh, there are very few laws which talks about how to handle data, right? how a country should handle their data with respect, laws with respect to how do you how do you localize your data, how do you encrypt data, what are the compliances required for any organization when they are handling such bulk data, let's say banks or something. That's where I feel that there needs to be some major policy in place where you could actually have some minimum compliance required for any organization. Let's say that they must have certain basic standards to to safeguard their data. That's one thing. The second part is that given given how we have come in terms of electronics or computer design, we must admit that these are lost forts. So when electronics were being developed in US or other countries, we did not build those ecosystems here. And if you look at quantum technology, we use a lot of electronics, a lot of electronic stuff is and fiber stuff into this, right? And we do not have those markets, those manufacturers, let's say, based out of India. So it is very, I would say, impractical to assume that we can make a change all of a sudden when the basic ingredients or the industry which is required is not in place. So even we also depend a lot of on foreign manufacturers for getting our stuff built. So what we see is that what we understand is that and I put it like something like a GUI model, which is government, university, and industry. So you must have these three pillars, a very close structure, which means that they have to be very closely associated. There must be policies which actually make industries responsible for adapting certain technologies, then funds available for research, and industry university partnership for building products. So that's where I see that it is very um, important and imperative for us to take this step and don't lose the wave like we lost the wave for building electronics. We lost the wave for computers. Now this is one technology which is coming up, and we should just get put ourselves into this and build this entire industry. So what we feel is that this is going to be the industry which is going to impact everybody. I mean, think about Android phones 10 years ago, 2009, when people just thought that their Samsung phone or Bada OS or Nokia will survive. Android made everybody switch it, right? And what we feel is that the quantum technology is at that particular point where they'll change there will be a massive change in the way we think about data. And uh, I think this is the quantum decade we are looking at. So yeah, that is it, which I would sum it for your question.
So, so I will ask you one last question, Animesh, and then we have a few set of questions which the audience have asked. So
Sure.
my final question to you will be that as a startup,
Hmm.
what are the challenges that you have faced
Hmm.
that could be related to, say, manufacturing in India, probably importing certain equipment, availability of equipment, patenting, IP?
Yes.
What are the challenges that you have faced as a startup? You could answer that, and then we'll open the floor for Q&A.
Sure thing. I think I mean, it was quite a challengeful journey for us, and when I started this journey, people actually, and some of the people just laughed that who is going to buy this technology, who will need it in India, and it was very demotivating for us. But something which kept us on the path was that we felt that we should be on this path and we must walk. And the challenges are manifold, from looking for funds to having skill deficit. And interestingly, you will be surprised that India, the first quantum cryptography paper, which is the quantum key distribution paper, was discussed in Bangalore in the year 1984. And since then, every country has progressed on this technology. And the people who are lagging behind are the is actually the Indian, which is actually good in terms of how theory work happens. But when we talk about how do we build into products, that is where our country lacks. And that's that. So the challenges are in terms of having skill deficit, because you don't get a lot of people who have that, that knowledge to build this technology, then, obviously the funds, the support is also not there, because, I mean, there are very uh, different problems, and this is altogether different dynamics. Even when you want to avail certain loans, it's very difficult in India for a startup. At least I can say it from my experience. We are still bootstrapped, and everything that we are doing now is from our own end without any external support. So we find that when you want to there has to be certain incentives for things to come up, right? And if you treat everything under a common bracket, then possibly technologies will not grow. Majority of the startups today are mostly into e-com and other things. uh, Technology related startups are few, and it needs more encouragement in terms of providing, let's say, even support in terms of funds, or and this technology is also new. So one should also know that uh, you have to educate your customers how they can use this technology, and therefore the sales cycle is also longer. So you don't get immediate money that that you today you have it and you get the money and you're all done and you can go for different rounds of funding. So there are many challenges with respect to it. I would say that our when we started working on this, we didn't think that we'll come up this far. So luckily we have been, and what we see is that from this point we want to make sure that, as each of us at some point of time should be able to use a quantum device made by Tackbit, and at least this is what I want to actually pursue, so that everyone, because in India data is for sale. You take anybody, nobody respects anybody's privacy, right? I mean, look at it. Anybody will ask for your email for phone, right? And you can get this information for some price on one websites, right? So we have to be very careful, because what we see is that if we do not build our technologies, we are also at the verge of becoming a digital colony, because most of the technology that we use today have been built outside India, right? So these are, I would say, there are two possibilities. One is that we become a digital colony, or we become a leader in digital innovation. And I think as we kind of put together, I think we should be able to we should strive to become a leader in this particular technology, and then just having some reactive steps and carrying some things from outside. We need to build those stuffs which are homegrown, right? That is very important. So yes.
Okay, thank you for that, Animesh. So we'll open the floor for some questions. We already have a few
Oh, we
questions.
have a lot of questions.
Yeah.
Okay.
So I think the earlier two questions I logged out and then logged in, so I'm not able to see those. Probably Anand
Okay.
can pick up the
No,
first.
even I can look at it.
Perfect.
So this is from Abhismit Patnaik. Please specify why quantum computers are efficient and faster than our supercomputers. Okay. Okay. So this I can possibly give an answer. So Abhismit, there are different ways in which a classical computer functions and a quantum computer functions. So I think if you look into the technicalities of it, there is a law which governs that how many transistors you can put inside a IC, and which is called as the Moore's law. So every year we are doubling. Every 2 years we are almost doubling the number of chips, number of transistors which can be put inside a chip. Okay. Now what happens is that if you keep on adding, doubling the number of transistors, you're also reaching certain limits, which is that as of now we have something like 14 nanometer is where you need to place these transistors, and anything, let's say, even lesser is also getting possible, something like between the range of 12 to 14 nanometer. Now the moment you go beyond that, which is in less than 10 nanometers, is where quantum behavior comes into picture. Okay. So therefore it cannot keep on happening. You can't keep on building the stuff like that. So you need, once the quantum behavior functions, then it is difficult to put things together. Therefore you need something where these behavior can be used for, let's say, something called as quantum tunneling, which is like a particle can cross a particular physical boundary, right? So what can happen is that you can use certain behavior, certain phenomena in quantum physics, and build quantum computers. So again, I'm saying it is not that the supercomputers will go out of the market. Quantum computers are good in certain particular tasks, and which they can do a way better than that. And as I told you in the beginning slide, quantum bit, which is a qubit, can actually, what two classical bits would do, a quantum bit will suffice. Therefore, with quantum bits, you can get a higher speed, or higher computational speed. So therefore, they are better in performing certain computational tasks.
Okay,
Okay,
there's another
will
question.
quantum computers replace the classical computers? I think I have told this. No, the classical computers will stay.
Right.
Okay, but quantum computers are good at some specific task, and it is not like classical computers will be beaten on every task that we do. No, quantum computers can do certain tasks beautifully and way more efficiently than what a classical computer will do, and therefore both of these two will remain for sure. This is a significant conversation in India about data because about data should be raised in timely manner. From a computer science perspective, are there security studies about verifiable data erasure, uncopyable data storage, etc.? It's so, are there quantum analogs of this issue? See, I think there are, so this is L single. First, I would say is that when you talk something about how storing your data, let's be very, this is also a compliance issue. I think I was mentioning about it. In many of these places, you do not have basic laws as to, stringent laws, which talks about how you have to handle your data. Having something in quantum is again, I would say that, at certain points, it is also going to be overkill, right? What we are talking about is, institutions using, at least there has to be a framework as to how do you handle your data, right? Then you can talk about, how can quantum help? Of course, there are better ways to encrypt it, but I think the adaptation of even the existing technologies is an issue, where you do not have, some basic standards being met. Like, I think, Tushar, you may be also aware of, when Europe went through, this, data privacy laws, right? When they talked about GDPR, right? When they talked about it, how we have to handle this data, right? I think that such a thing is yet to happen in India. So I think it is more about, how can we put those frameworks and make sure that there is a compliance. So, like, like today, you are being put that, you must have some license, some, registration for, right, putting your vehicle, right? Such kind of a thing is not there for, putting your data online, right? Even if you put something on Google, people just jump it, right? Because we are trusting that the user is actually safeguarded with the infrastructure being provided. But as such, we don't use any such thing from our end, right? So that is. Next is Soumya Arora. Can quantum tech be used to tackle development challenges like cleaner fertilization or climate change? If yes, how can we build a policy for the same? Okay, this is a tough one for me. How can quantum tech be used to tackle development challenges? I would say this is not a question. First, I don't understand, how can quantum tech be used for tackle development and challenges. What I can say is that if you are building your economy on technology, you get a lot of say in terms of handling other matters, right? So quantum technology, in terms of, of course, there are many things coming up, like, when you are able to do some protein folding simulations, this will impact agriculture. But I do not know that, how can this quantum technology solve cleaner fertilization. I'm so sorry. Yeah. What is quantum behavior? Okay. So, Rajat Mishra, just for you, I would say, um, uh, for anything to be quantum, there are two, I would say, golden laws. The first law is uncertainty, which means that, there is an inherent um, things which we do not know, okay, in quantum. And this is not because our devices are not good. It is just that it is inherent. Okay, so, you would have heard in your probably in your 12th, position momentum uncertainty, which means that, the more you are sure about position, the less you are sure about the momentum, right? That's the first part. The other part is complementarity, is that, when you cannot distinguish if something is actually a wave or a particle. Okay, so if these are full, and there are other complementarities also, I'm just for your say ease of understanding. In classical, you do not see a football turning into a wave, right? You don't see that. But in quantum physics, you can see that electron, eventually becomes a cloud. when we call electron clock, it's basically it shows both a classical as well as a particle as well as a wave behavior. So that's how you can distinguish that, if these two laws are done, then we can effectively say that this is a quantum behavior. Okay, how can someone learn quantum computing from different backgrounds rather than science, and what minimum requirements? Okay, first, the only thing required for learning quantum computing, I would say, is having some high school mathematics, because you can't do without it, and then you need to do a bit of hard work. And I think that if you have this in place, anybody can learn. And you can search about uh, just quantum computing techniques or lessons, and you will get a lot of videos. I'm also, what I've also told Anant is that I'll share a few articles and videos or tutorials which can help us educate ourselves about quantum technology. Okay, Abhismit, is companies like IBM already started quantum computing as shown in YouTube? Okay, I will tell. Usually, all these companies have their technology already built, okay, but they have their existing products in the market. So it is not like that they're gonna just take off everything. I will give you a common example. When we had those incandescent bulbs, right? Then it came having those what do you call it, um, CFLs, right? Those CFLs were there, but LEDs were almost at the same time, right? So the CFLs were first used because there's the stock which has to be exhausted, right? And then came the LEDs. So it is not that the technology is not there. It is just that they are also kind of enabling certain particular population with respect to how they can enable this technology. And I would say that they are way ahead. So even what they are showing is actually a portion of what they have developed. So let's assume that they have already built a lot of good things.
Also, another sector is the automobile sector, right? So you have all the car manufacturers, plus they have the previous technology that is there.
Yes, yes.
Plus they have,
It's the same product cycle. Nobody can deny about it. And if you
and they're
see,
right in that matter because they've already done so much amount of investment in a particular technology that
yes, yes,
that it's just not possible, and it's just not economically viable for these companies to just like you just can't pull off one particular thing and then introduce something.
yes, yes, yes.
So
Yeah, that's what I think. That's what happens to every, I would say, every sector. It is not that there's anything wrong about it, just that people have to also have a sense of economics in their mind, right? It is not a free show that anybody can have, right? So when there's investment, obviously there has to be an investment cycle, right? So I think that's perfectly fine. Okay, Elson, yes. How does reduction in distance in transistors under results in quantum behavior? Okay, Rajat Mishra, I think you should have pursued science for that thing. But just to tell you, see, what happens is that let's assume a finite wall, okay? And this wall will actually assume it like a switch. So if it is horizontal, it will allow the flow. If it is vertical, it will not allow the flow, right? When you go to a dimension less than 10 nanometer, there is an effect called as quantum tunneling, which means that you no longer open the walls. The quantum particle or the electron will just tunnel through the wall. That is called as quantum tunneling. Okay, so therefore your gates will not be effective because you're using transistors for application of logic gates, right? So therefore this will lead to some sort of a unstable behavior. Okay, therefore there are issues in terms of how to control this behavior. So we are already reaching the saturation in terms of computational speeds of computers. Yes. What will be the role of scientists in quantum computing? This is akin to saying what is the role of lawyers in legal profession. So of course, scientists are going to be the guys who are going to build this technology. So yeah. In your experience, are there laws, regulations that hinder development of quantum technologies? Okay. I do not know anything which hinders. I am talking about a generic, a behave, or I would say situation when you want to build any particular company or any particular building any industry. So like how do you see these Maruti cars in place, right? there was a policy in place, right? They had a goal that there has to be these cars being manufactured, and therefore there was support, and through partnerships, this was being built. So what we are trying to say is that once kind of put that that the data has to be safeguarded, and there are there's a requirement for such a thing, then of course the market will also mature, right? So it is more about that. I don't know particular that what are the laws which hinder the development. It is just that the India has been more kind of a consumer based market than a innovative market, right? So I think the challenges are more in terms of how to create that ecosystem. Okay, how do AI and quantum computing complement each other? Okay, this is an interesting question. So thank you, Soumya, for this particular question. Now let me tell you, we had industrial revolution, right? And then we had industrial 2.0, when you had mechanical devices being made, and there was all many places were opened up, right? Then you had something called as electronics, right? That's the industry. You basically automated many such things. Now what AI is doing is that this is leading to something called as industry 4.0, where much of the bulk task, especially which can be done through a a computerized system or device, will all be all automated, and but when you leave all those things to robots, how are you sure that you want to you want to handle your data? Therefore, when there is no manual intervention, you have to use the best possible technologies, right? So therefore you need this, whether it is computing or cryptography, you have to have those things put together, because AI is something which I would say, um, well, I have a different take when people say that AI is changing. Of course, for regular jobs, let's say that you want to put just think what ATM did to cash withdrawal systems in banks, right? So you could do it by yourself, right? The same way, many such jobs which can be automated will be done for sure. That we are sure that many such jobs will go to computers, because computers will do a better job at handling such stuff. But quantum computing as such is on a different scale altogether. Quantum computing is about how it can make changes in terms of some simulation, or some finance, some, let's say, the stock market simulation, some modeling of a bomb, or or some medicine. Let's say you want to do some simulation for a medicine which takes years to be done, will be effectively done using a quantum computer. So I think, but definitely they will go hand in hand, because most things are becoming AI, and quantum computing on the other hand will just add to the power of AI. Yes. As shown in the internet, quantum computing uses 0 and both at the same time in a binary code. Is it true? Okay. Okay. So for this question, I would say it's a different method. As I told you, is that a quantum bit is in a both 0 and 1 state. Now think about it. Imagine that your friend is in a dark room, okay, and that room has got, let's say, 4 divisions, right, 4 corners, and you cannot see through through the walls of the room. So if I ask you where exactly is your friend, you cannot have a finite answer to that, right? You can say that he could be in any of those 4 corners, or in the middle, or any such place, right? So this is called as something called as a superposition, which means that in a superposition of all those possibilities, right? It could be in one corner or the other corner or in the center, right? But the moment you open the door, he cannot be in multiple places, right? He has to be in one particular fixed place, right? So when you say that qubit, so once a qubit is in one state, but when you try to measure it, it will also collapse to 1 or 0. Okay, so that is how a qubit behaves. Okay, and I would say in the coming, I think what I understand from Anand and Tushar is that this is going to be ongoing dialogue with multiple people, also multiple webinars coming in. I would say stay tuned, because many questions cannot be answered you know in just a few minutes. But what I'm trying to tell you is that yes, it is true that it can be 0 and 1 at the same time, but the logics are not as the same as what we do in classical computers. I hope that answers. And I think we have taken all questions. Oh, this is a very interactive session, Anand. I didn't expect it because people are asking more physics questions than policy questions.
Right. No, I mean, imagine if all 85 had turned up. I think,
Yes,
yeah.
yes.
No, but seriously, I mean, thank you both, Shar and Animesh, for this
Mhm.
conversation. I think we really covered a lot of ground on such a complicated, area, right? And clearly, from whatever both of you were kind of probing, it emerges that the use cases are many, and in particular, cryptography is a very strong use case. There are multiple reports that talk about an efficiency in cybersecurity
Yes,
technologies and skills when it comes to India.
yes.
And it's a country of more than a billion. So I think none of us need to debate the 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 potential threats that come in when there is a data leak. So I think with all of that in mind, it's imperative that we really address some of these policy issues that you spoke about, even if briefly towards the
Mm,
end of the conversation with Tushar, because I think that really is
mm,
where a lot of thinking as lawyers we need to kind of support. And this is something we have been constantly asking, especially folks like Tushar, who are engaged in the policy space
mm.
in a hands-on capacity. Why is it that India does not have a DARPA equivalent, right? I mean, why is it that we
Oh,
are
we have a
unable to?
DARPA equivalent, just that it is not as effective as DARPA.
I mean, why is it that we don't
Yes.
have a meaningful
So,
DARPA equivalent? Okay, I correct myself there.
yes.
And you spoke about it, right? That trifecta of industry, academia, and
Yes, yes, yes. And I think that, from, I mean, this is, I would say, my humble submission is that the people who are into the policy making must look at three particular things. Data is the new oil. Okay, we must be very concerned about how do we handle data. So the policies with respect to storing and transmitting data is very important. The first part. The second part is laws with respect to localization of data, which means that the data of Indians should not sit at Chinese servers. Okay, those laws are very important, right? The third part is the effective adaptation and upgradation of technology. Regular, what we see, usually is that you have certain technologies which came and were never upgraded. And what such thing you can see is railways, right? Because it took a lot of years for upgradation, right? So when you see every day new things are being developed and being and are changed, we must be also be very dynamic in terms of how you upgrade your technology. Okay, and this is I would sector agnostic thing I'm talking about. This could be like every sector, whether it is robotics or whether it is electronics, everywhere we have to have those tech systems in place which actually upgrade us to a different level. So that is very important. So three things I feel that the people from policy should look is that understand the relevance of this technology, that how relevant it is, and this also that's the reason that I want that people know that how they're going to be impacted because of such a technology, right? And then how we can make certain laws or certain policies which are actually important for overall good of everybody, right? I mean, that's actually that's how it should be. And apart from else, I think it is more that we also have to have that I mean, usually if you see, when you want to approve something, right, you look west, right? That I would say it is partly colonial hangover has to go, that people are building it.
right.
And every time I tell people that people, my is Sridhar Vem's, the founder of Zoho, who took so much of efforts to just build this technology. So I see that there's a lot of potential. Indians, I would say that a lot of potential. We have a lot of people. Just think about it that there are people who are not physicists, but they also have that inherent ability to ask questions. How certain things could be, right? So we are not lacking in potential. It is just that how do you turn this potential into effective force, right? How can you build this? So I would say that I'm grateful to everybody who has come here. Okay, and I want that they take this up and see that how policies can be put with respect to data, because once that thing is taken care, then effectively you need people, you need systems to safeguard it, right? And obviously that whole chain can be triggered, that put in place. So yeah, that is what, yeah, I would say about.
Let's hope
Mm,
that it definitely leads to a virtuous cycle of,
yes, yes,
policies around data, right? And
yes,
then leading to more investment in quantum cryptography and solutions, particularly when it comes to sensitive
correct,
data
correct.
and national critical infrastructure of our
Oh, of course,
country,
of course.
or all countries, for that
Yes,
matter.
yes. I mean, you have heard about the critical infrastructure, where Chinese hacked
Yes,
something in Mumbai, right? Think
yes,
about it. That if you do not handle, I'm saying that we will become a digital colony. The way we think, the way we want to think, the way we want to act, everything can be controlled. And that is very scary. As as a population such large as India, we have to have effective laws in place, and to put things together. Yes.
sure. And of course, finally, I can also safely say, looking at the questions that came up, that this has to be more than one conversation. We
Oh
will
yes, yes,
plan
yes,
a series of conversations around quantum,
yes,
which I'm sure Daksha Fellows and the general public can also consume. We will, of course, upload the video, and as promised, we will also send across some reading material to give our viewers a sense of some of these
yes,
applications and how where the lay of the land is at present. But
yes,
more about that later. So keep following us at Daksha Fellowship. Social media channels are rife with information around technology, law, and policy. And most certainly, we are open for admissions, which will close by about end of July. For those of you who are looking for full residential experience learning technology, law, and policy, this I can safely say is the place to be. So do consider applying for the fellowship this year. So on that note, let me once again thank Tushar and Animesh for taking time out and starting
thank
off
you, Anand,
one
thank you, Daksha Fellowship.
conversation, which I'm hopeful
Yes,
will lead to a series of more conversations around quantum technology.
yes,
So
yes.
thank you.
Yeah,
Thank
and I just to keep the participant excited, we are already planning the second session, and we will be we'll come up with the another session where we talk about more in terms of how I mean, I would say lawyers could be help in terms of putting things together. So
Right.
we are planning those things, and I want that I want to thank Daksha. It is actually a good pleasant surprise that that people from that particular spectrum are also interested in terms of how do we take it up, right? And that is a good thing, which is, I would say, it's a good change for us to know that, because it has to be, people need to be not kept in boxes. They must also know that what is
Right.
happening in other sector, and that helps a lot in terms of as a one person may not understand it, but if people in a sector understand, then things can be put effectively. It is not that
That
one
is the
can be
purpose
only
of the
with
fellowship.
physicists, one could be only because of lawyers, or one could only exist because of police. It is just that many things come together to harmonize everything and connect everything. So yeah, I would say it's a good start, Anand, and let's try and plan, and because Tushar has taken this initiative, and we're also discussing, we'll also come up with a few more sessions on this particular topic, because it is not a topic which will be covered in just one session, but we'll come up in with different topics. How do we deal with this?
Thank you. Thank you both. And stay safe. And to all our
Yes.
viewers again, stay safe.
thank
Thank
you.
you.
Thank you. Thank you, Tushar. Thank you,
Thank you.
Anand.